All right. So tell me your athletics background, kind of where you started and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah.
I should say.
So, yeah. So I have played soccer my entire life since I was 4 years old. And I played collegiately at the University of Rochester for all 4 years. And I had first been interested in sports psych, actually going back to some of my younger soccer days. We had, when I was on ODP, which is the Olympic Development Program, we had a sports psychologist come in. I think I was like in ninth grade. And at that time, not really understanding how important it was, I was just like, oh, we're writing goals on a soccer ball. Okay, well, yeah, this worked. I did this well. Okay, cool. But then realizing once I was in college how important the mental side of the game was. And I took a course when I was abroad in London on a sports psychology course, fell in love. And once I came back for my senior season, I had asked my coach if we could try and find someone that could do some stuff with us because I thought it'd be really important. And he was all on board. He found us Dr. Raynard, which is in Geneseo, and he did some work with us. And I actually did individual work with him and found it to be very beneficial and knew I was like, gosh, I want to do this for my career. Like I would be working with athletes all the time. I'd be helping them, perform better. I wish I had this my entire career. So this would be awesome. But then realizing too, through my own mental health and my friends and my teammates and just the college campus, how important mental health was too, and wanting to be able to dip my toes in that as well. So when I was graduating, I was looking at programs and decided with Boston University because I was going to be able to get my degree in counseling, my master's in counseling and sports psychology. And I got to intern with college teams doing sports psych. They just threw us right in, and I was doing sports psych with soccer, basketball. And then my mental health internship was actually at a college called Wheaton College, small little college in Norton, Mass. And I was doing mental health there. And I loved the mental health side of things at the college. And then I loved doing college sports as well with athletes. So that was what kind of sparked it. And once I graduated, I reached out to the former, or he wasn't my coach because he was the men's coach, but Chris Apple at University of Rochester, if he would be interested in working with a mental skills coach. And he said yes. And I was extremely surprised and built the program there with them and had 3 great seasons with them. And then fast forward to my current job now as I'm the mental skills coordinator for the Baltimore Orioles minor league team. So not doing mental health with them because we have our own providers for that, but focus solely on the mental side of the game, mental skills. So that's my journey to this role.
Very cool. So talk about kind of what you've collaborated with, head athletic trainer Angela Zagarelli, and obviously the Geneseo student athletes. Talk about your collaboration and kind of what has come of that and what we've created.
Yeah. So Angela reached out to me, and I can't remember when, but Angela was my athletic trainer, one of my athletic trainers when I was at U of R. And I had reached out to him when I had graduated from Boston University, and I really wanted to be at a college, and I saw there was a position open. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that position, but we've stayed in touch. And then this opportunity came up for the panel, and I jumped right on board. I thought it was amazing. And then afterwards, him and I were talking, and I wanted to do something because I know how important mental health is for student athletes. And I wanted to do something more for that, and had offered to do these coping skills series, especially because with COVID right now and the pandemic, extremely stressful for everyone. And then with the student athletes, like seasons being canceled, not being able to play, you'll see your teammates. I just knew how important it would be, and was grateful that he thought it was an awesome idea. And then came up with, we're on the drawing board, figuring out what would be best, and this little series of the different coping skills. And I hope it's been helpful for people in that time, because again, it's been just such an awkward and strange year for everyone. And my utmost, my goal is to try and help people get through that.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously you mentioned the pandemic and how things have changed over the course of the past 12 months. Um, I feel like that's kind of built a lot of momentum for mental health and mental wellness awareness, especially in the athletics realm. How do we sustain that momentum going forward as hopefully things start to return to normal?
That is a very good question. And I know it's something as providers we are aware of. And I think, well, something that comes to mind for me is I'm thinking of mental health with returning to play. And that's my biggest concern right now is coming back from this awkward time. And we've built up like this awareness and have really, I think, done a great job of breaking some of the stigma behind it to be like, hey, yeah, you're feeling this. A lot of people are feeling it. This is mental health, right? And it's okay to feel like this. It's not good to feel it, but like it's okay because you're going through it. So I think it's a positive from COVID is that we have broken down some of the stigma behind it. And like I said, going forward, I think our biggest concern as providers is the return to play and how that's going to impact athletes and their mental health. And again, I think it's going to be normalizing that. Like as a provider, I know my goal is going to be to normalize this whatever emotion comes with returning to play. It could be anxiety, it could be excitement, it could be stress, it could be all these things and whatever they're feeling and normalize that. And then again, I think it's going to be having these conversations openly to be like, yes, you might be feeling this. This person's feeling this. It's okay. So just opening it up for everyone to see what others are feeling, I think is going to be really important. But acknowledging too that just because we go back to whatever normal might be, it's not going to be, and people are still going to be impacted. And I know like I said, my goal is going to be to educate and work with our EAP providers to give the resources that are needed for them. I know I want to do like an expectation versus reality type workshop, right? Where we have this expectation that we're going to be perfect and everything's going to go back to normal. It's going to be shiny. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. And then reality, it's going to be not that. It's going to be probably the opposite. And it's going to take time. And again, just to normalize it. It's going to be hard. It's going to take time, but to just be an open support for them.
That's awesome. That was really exactly what I was looking for when I kind of thought of that question. That was a great response, and
Oh, good.
I completely agree with you that the new normal is not necessarily going to be normal. So trying to adjust to that is going to be a big process. And I think having, somebody with a mental skills and mental coping and wellness background in your corner as a student athlete or as a professional athlete is a huge benefit.
I mean,
Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was just going to say again, I think, and I just think with college athletes, they just, what you said is so accurate because they've not only had their season, like their athletic careers changed, like they're in school and that's changed too. So going back to class, like the fears around being in person again, like things like that, not just related to sports, but just being a human. And recognizing that, yeah, these fears are rational and it's okay to have them. So yeah, I agree with you 100%.
How does being being mentally attuned to or kind of aware of your feelings, your emotions, your anxieties, how does that awareness and being cognizant of that, how does that impact athletic performance? Like where's the connection there?
Yeah. That is literally what I teach first. And when I'm working with a team or with an individual athlete, it's all about self-awareness. If you're not self-aware, you can't make any changes, right? Because if I say like, well, let's say someone like shanks a free throw, right? And I'm like, what were you thinking before you did that? And they're like, well, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Well, we can't make any changes if we don't know what's going on. So the more in tune you are with what triggers you, what your self-talk is, what are the bodily sensations you're feeling, right? even if like you're going into an exam, are you feeling like your stomach, like, does it have butterflies? Are your palms sweating? Are your thoughts racing? What is going on? Because that's when we can work on skills to help manage those. They're not going to go away necessarily, but we can help to manage them. So it's like A plus B plus C, right? Like we need to know all of these things that are triggering you and what those behaviors are so we can make adjustments. So like that's like my players would, I think, probably be annoyed because I'm like a broken record. I'm like awareness. Because and a lot of times too, it's funny because like athletes are like, well, I don't know. I shouldn't be thinking during those moments. And I'm like, okay, like fair enough, but you are thinking in those moments. There are things going on. So just paying attention like after practice to thinking about those things. It's like it's essential to getting better at anything, right? Like even like let's think about like the workplace. If you're in a meeting and it's not well received, it's like, okay, like, well, what went wrong? Like, what were you doing? How did you present? I don't know. And it's like, well, we're not going to be able to make those changes and improve unless you know what's going on. And it's hard for people because they don't a lot of times think about themselves in that way. It's uncomfortable. But to break that mold, we have to like push ourselves out of that comfort zone. And that's when like the real change happens. And it's beautiful when that happens. It's like, oh, I did this and it helped. And I'm like, yeah, you did it. So yes, self-awareness is huge.
That's awesome. Trying to think if there's anything else that I want to touch on. I guess what I'll ask is, what's next? How do you think, or what are the opportunities for Geneseo and you that maybe we can collaborate again in the future?
Yeah. My hope is that someone got something, at least one person got something out of the coping skills strategies. And that I think for the spring, I would like to do something more related to the mental side of the game, doing little workshops, maybe once a month on different topics like awareness and ideal mindset or performance anxiety. Again, these are coping skills that student athletes can use in everyday life, but it's also going to help them with their performance. So I'm hoping to do like more longer series and group workshops that are be provided for all the athletes. And I think it's so important because at these a Division III level, there isn't many mental skills or sports psychologists readily available. The funding isn't there. It's just not a top priority. It makes sense. And I'm hoping to be able to provide a little bit of that because I know how important it was for me as a college athlete at Division III level.
Yeah, that's awesome. We've got a lot of really positive feedback from student athletes, from staff, from upper administration up the hill, about the coping strategy series and how effective it has been. And I think that it's a testament to how important mental health awareness is and mental wellness is for student athletes. And on behalf of the entire department, I just want to say that I really appreciate you helping us out and all of your work that you've put in to benefiting our student athletes who, like Angela said earlier, most of them you haven't even met. So yeah. we really appreciate your presence and your help, and hope that we can continue collaborating in the future.
Of course.
Is there anything that you want to add to the discussion that I may have missed?
I think my only thing would be to anyone that would be listening. I know it's very easy for us to sit here and talk about mental health and just do these coping skills and just like do this and that. And it's very hard and difficult to actually go and get the help. And I respect that, the difficulty of that, and to know that the first step is always the hardest. And that's so cliche, but again, I've rewatched the panel and the discussion that was had, and then trying to figure out what you need in those moments and reaching out. It will be life changing. So break the stigma. That's what I say. Break the stigma. That's what we'll say. Break the stigma.